World Cargo International, your one stop for freight forwarding. We aim to provide a quality customer service driven by our long-term commitment and expertise in the industry. We guarantee a fast and efficient, reliable service to Africa, Europe, the Americas, Asia and the Caribbean. So call us to discuss your needs on 01582 733 711. That's 01582 733 711. World Cargo International, where nothing is too big.
Did you know some people live with HIV for years without showing any symptoms? It's National HIV Testing Week, a perfect time to have a test. If you have HIV, finding out means you can start treatment and stay healthy. Test negative, you get peace of mind. Testing is easy, free, and confidential. You can even test at home. Give HIV the finger. A finger prick test is all it takes. Get a free test at freetesting.hiv.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Talking Football Show with Team Zimbabwe UK and Terrence Higgins Trust, talking sexual health awareness and all matters football. This, of course, is another in a series of shows sponsored by Terrence Higgins Trust, where we're trying to promote sexual health awareness in the African community. It was last 2 weeks ago, it was National Testing Week, National HIV Testing Week, where we're all being encouraged to go and get tested and know our results. The whole point being, as long as you know your result, you can be treated and we can stop this. Know our results. The whole point being, if you are interested, please go to www.tht.uk, and if you're in and around the UK. There are testing centers close to you, so you can get more details from there. Any other information on sexual health awareness, of course, you can get it from there as well. We are joined by the CEO of Team Zimbabwe UK, who are in partnership with Terrence Higgins Trust to bring you this program and other programs that are going to be coming in the next few months around sexual health awareness, mental illness, and sport as well. So our CEO of Team Zimbabwe will be better placed to tell you more about that in a moment. I'm also joined in the studio by my co-host, Mr. Kelvin Sifalani. Gentlemen, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And today, with what's going on in the world, I don't know. I thought we should maybe. I don't know if I can say go a bit deep, but trying to find if sport and politics go hand in hand. Can you have sport without politics, or can you have sport without the politics? So we've got an issue in Zimbabwe where FIFA has been suspended from FIFA because of government interference. Kenya as well. We've got the war in Ukraine, where Russia has had the rights of hosting the Formula One, the Champions League final taken away from them. Any other games as well, they've been taken away from them because of that. So I guess politics comes into that as well. The Chelsea owner, of which Mr. Marshall is a supporter of Chelsea, has had to relinquish control of the club because of that, and that seems like politics. So without obviously going into the politics, into the whys of what's happening in the world, in the wars and stuff like that, it's just about sport. Can sport and politics go hand in hand? I think that will be the theme of the first two topics in this hour. Obviously, we've got the Carabao Cup final coming up at 4:30. We'll then look at that from 4 o'clock, just talking about the game itself, predictions, and everything else. But for now, we'll start with the FIFA suspension from FIFA. And that seems like it was a long time coming. It was inevitable. I don't know, Mr. Marshall, if maybe I'll start with you, and you can maybe give us a background of what has gotten us to this point where Zifa is no longer has been suspended from the FIFA family indefinitely.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And good afternoon, Kelvin. It's always good to have you on the show. Sam, I think our problems in Zimbabwe have been building up for the last few years, I have to say. Ever since Felton Kamambo took over as the ZIFA president, we have not had sanity in the game. This has continued for quite some time. And the challenges we have had are multifaceted, really. They include misgovernance, illicit handling of finance or embezzlement of finances, mismanagement of football development itself. There's not been any structured programs that have taken place under this administration. So when you put it together, we have not progressed at all in terms of how we are supposed to have progressed, So I actually think that we are where we are because we deserve to be where we are. And then there are corruption allegations as well, that in the build up to the elections, when this body was elected, that they were corruption and people were bribed to vote for certain people to be in charge of our football, perhaps maybe without the necessary credentials. So it has been a catastrophe of misgovernance, mismanagement, dishonesty, and unreliability, and wounded leadership, really. So the problem started when SRC, which is the government supreme body that oversees sport, decided to suspend the ZIFA board. I think the reasons for suspending the ZIFA board was to do with the allegations that were investigated by a journalist in Bulawayo, because I've forgotten the name of the journalist. So he wrote an article where he cited a lot of abuse that was happening. I think a lot of these abuses initially involved the then referee secretary, Brighton Malandule, who we heard that he was offering that people had to sleep with him and give them jobs and stuff like that. So there was quite a lot in the report, which is damning. It was published in the Chronicle, I think 2 years ago, citing these things. So I think as people continued to talk, the journalist interviewed the victims, and the victims opened up to the abuse that was happening. A lot of it was also happening in women's football, in the Mighty Warriors. So it's quite a lot of dirty stuff that was happening under the carpet. And in addition to this, when SRC asked ZIFA for their financial audit reports, they refused to share it with SRC, meaning that they were quite aware that there were things that were not straight in the report, which again precipitated and made government quite agitated, that if you are refusing to account to the state, then what exactly are you hiding? And the reason which ZIFA will always use is obviously we are not accountable to the state, we are accountable to FIFA. So there was an argument over this over a long period of time until it came to a situation where SRC, on behalf of government, took a stand now to suspend the board because of the allegations of abuse, and also because of their refusal to actually account and open up and give a proper financial audit. But this culminated firstly in the suspension of the Secretary General Mamutse, who had been suspended for certain misconducts, and he defied the suspension from SRC. And again, we saw it happening just before the AFCON, that when the board members, Felton Kamambo, the president, and Phil Mon Machana, the administrator and acting vice president, were suspended, they all defied the suspension, choosing to use the FIFA law and statutes to battle their innocence, that they were being targeted because of politics, that they did not have a case to answer. So what happened then is that when SRC wrote to FIFA citing these irregularities and the measures they had taken, that they had requested for an interim committee to be set up to take over the administration of football, FIFA then asked CAF to investigate into the matter. It became very tedious. There was not much clarity FIFA wrote. So it was pushed back really for the Confederation to look into the issues before the Federation could make a decision. And ultimately, I think the Confederation had to look into it, but I don't think they did have a look into it thoroughly. I don't recall having any CAF officials traveling to Zimbabwe to interview people and to actually look into these allegations clearly. But what we have now is a situation where the suspended board have now used the FIFA law and statute to plead on the interference of government. And I think FIFA, in those cases, they always side with the association to say government should reinstate them, and then there should be engagement and collaboration and discussions in resolving these things. So we are at a stalemate now, where FIFA had issued an instruction to SRC to reinstate the board, I think in January, and because they have not done so, the FIFA Ethics Committee is met to decide to say this is tantamount to interference, and therefore Zimbabwe should be expelled until the board members, the corrupt, if I am to say, board members have been reinstated, which I find it very difficult. I will maybe give you the solutions later, but in a nutshell, this is where we are. This has been happening in the last 6 months, and it has not been great for the country. It's disheartening and disappointing that we are now out of the football world.
So just to clarify, SRC, that's the Sports and Recreation Commission, are a government body, right?
Yes, they are a government body.
And then also another clarification: FIFA laws say no government interference whatsoever in the running of football in any country. Is that correct as well?
They say that, but it's very vague, because remember, these football associations are also constituted according to the law of the country as well.
Of the country, yes.
So yeah, so it becomes very legal now at that point. How do you classify interference when SRC are also have jurisdiction over these sporting bodies? So in other words, you can say the interpretation lies with FIFA anyway to define what interference is. But a government body has got a right also to interfere, especially if there is cases of abuse, people being abused, and embezzlement of finances and stuff like that. And we know that people were arrested, they're on bail now, So at what point do we allow these people to continue to be in charge of our football and let them with FIFA sort it out? This is the situation where we have, and I think in the FIFA letter, FIFA did put it in their last paragraph also. They say also, whilst they have suspended the Zimbabwe, but they also do not endorse the abuses that have taken place. They condemn that as well. So this is always the issue, the legal issue now, to say how is this going to be resolved. But maybe later on I'll bring in the solution.
Before I bring Kelvin on, you mentioned that it was a small sentence they wrote at the end.
Yeah.
This was like a long letter, and the condemnation of what's going on was just a one sentence thing, but there was more emphasis on having third party interference, and they are against that, whatever the case. So like you were saying, SRC has jurisdiction on national issues, and if ZIFA and the board are in trouble with the law in Zimbabwe, surely FIFA has no jurisdiction over ZIFA at this point. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but also, Sam, I think it's important for me to highlight that, in my view, I felt also that SRC, although they smelled the blood, I think they moved in too quick. So maybe let me say what should have happened. What should have happened is that there were 3 board members that were suspended, and this board is full of about, I think, 10 members or so, So I think maybe what should have happened is that when there were criminal charges laid on these 3 board members, I think SRC should have waited until the matters had gone to court and prosecution had actually happened. Then at that stage, they should have written to the other board members now to say, as a board, as you know, that the officials that are sitting on the board have been charged with criminal charges. Then it would have been the board's decision to deal with those 3 members, to ask them to step down and find interim people to come and replace them so that football can continue to function. Why do I say this? Because we had an issue of Gift Banda, who was the vice president. There were allegations of criminal activities and corruption for him. So what happened was that the board dealt with that and came to a decision that he had to be suspended, and then until he's cleared with the courts the matters that he had outstanding. And then after that, the board appointed someone to become an interim, to take his interim position whilst they continue to oversee football. So in my view, the best way to deal with this problem would have been to allow the other board members, of which we know they've come out that the majority of the board members were against these three individuals that were cited in the first suspension. So SRC should have worked with them on the peripheral and supported them to reach a decision without actually interfering, which is difficult at some point as well, where there are criminal charges and abuse charges being presented. So government also acted. So I actually think that maybe in their correctness, but maybe they acted too fast. SRC, they should have allowed the board to resolve the matter, maybe with their support, without actually directly being involved. Because once they involved, then it's tantamount to a third-party interference or politics interfering into football. And this is a standard rule, which is it doesn't mean it's right to say that also, especially if the cases at stake are serious, like as we know in the cases that have been put against Kamambo and Machana and the other guy.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, Kelvin, to you and to anyone listening as well, the question is like, I've always thought that probably grew up on the mantra that sport and politics don't mix, and also, I think it's a bit hypocritical because as well, you've seen sport bringing people together. They've always used sport to bring people together. There are lots of cases. You can go to Ivory Coast war when Drogba and the national team brought the warring parties together. The issues in Taiwan, in China, where sport has gotten into politics to bring people together. But then, have we been naive in thinking that maybe the two should not go hand in hand?
I think with the way that the world works, there will always be instances where politics and sport will overlap. This is not a unique thing. It's not something that's happening for the first time. Uh, this business of FIFA bringing to bear their power against, showing their power and suspending a national administration simply because they believe there's been government interference or undue interventions brought to bear on a national administration. Um, I think it's pretty clear to everybody that FIFA has always taken a dim view of any interference on any um, confederation that runs football in whatever country it is. However, at the same time, I think in many respects, FIFA is well within their rights to say that, look, if there are allegations of corruption or criminality, that the law must take its course, and that whoever is alleged to have been had some sort of wrongdoing, that they're brought to justice, and as a result, they would obviously not be able to be a part and parcel
Yeah.
of a confederation.
Is
So
that fair though? Do you think that's fair?
I think in many respects, um, FIFA has got to safeguard
The game,
the game
the fans.
and administrators. But as I say, there'll always be difficulties in following the protocols that are in place in dealing with matters where they deem that a national association has been unduly influenced by a third party. So it's a very difficult set of circumstances. But
I've seen instances where recently the FA, the Football Association here in the UK, were called maybe a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, Marshall or anyone who can remember, were called in front of the Parliamentary Committee of Ethics or something like that, and they were made to answer to the government here. But I never heard anything about government interference there, or is that a different case altogether?
Well,
No, actually, you are right to bring that argument. That overall in FIFA, there's been a selection application of justice, and this has happened also in cricket, where certain organizations, where Imran Khan, the Pakistani president,
Mm,
suspended the Pakistani cricket board and reinstated it with a new board, but the world governing body did not sanction Pakistan because obviously Pakistan are a big name in football and well, in cricket. I mean, in world cricket, it happened when we did the same in Zimbabwe. You know, we when our cricket president did the same in Zimbabwe, we were suspended as well on those same basis. So here, you're right, government interfered because government put pressure for the FA boss who was there because of the remarks he had made that he should go. So there
mm,
was pressure put in politically for the FA boss to resign
mhm,
because they felt that what he had said in his statement was actually racist and disregard of humanity. So then there was political pressure in parliament. He was asked to be summoned and asked to put in an apology, and there was pressure, political pressure for him to leave his job, which eventually he left his job. But then this is where now things come into perspective to say um, the English FA and the English football brings a lot to the coffers of FIFA. So again, the selective application of justice there, where certain countries they're allowed to put that pressure and get away with it. But in our case, maybe in our case, what made it worse is that the uh, the board the board members that were being suspended actually wrote to FIFA, informing FIFA that they were being targeted. And I think this is what drew FIFA's attention. Maybe in the case here, the former FA boss did not, maybe had he written to FIFA, the outcome would have been different. But the cases are very similar.
arrest. Coming back to the Zimbabwean issue specifically, obviously we've been having trouble with in Zimbabwean football with Zifa from the administration. Basically, football in Zimbabwe is just not in a good place at the moment. Do you think overall, forget about how it has happened? Do you think this might be a good thing for Zimbabwe in future to maybe say maybe like uh, get a reset button and start from scratch and sort ourselves out before we allowed back into the international committee.
I, 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 I don't think it's possible for us to be able to tell whether the outcomes are going to be positive in after this suspension. And no one can really tell.
Mm,
However, what we can safely say is that football is in a terrible place right now in Zimbabwe.
mhm,
It's right now it's at its lowest ebb. There were times in the past where football administration in general was a lot better than it was today. We had a thriving league, thriving attendances at various stadiums around the country, from Mutare to Masvingo, Kwekwe, Gweru, Luveve, Barberfields, Wange, all of that. And all of that reputation and uh, um, excellence in football administration is fast dissipating, and it's fast been dissipating for a number of years now. The only thing that I believe that at some point that the situation might be retrieved is that the more and more people recognize what a money spinner football can be. And if we have the right people in place, uh, um, uh, uh, administering the game of football in the appropriate way and commercializing it, making it well worth its while, making it a viable industry. Only then will I think that the reset button can come into effect.
I remember we spoke about that when we were talking about um, replacements for this Ziffa committee, of which I think that's obviously going to be a long-going conversation. But I've got a message here from Tinashe, which says, "How exactly is a Ziffa board elected?" I'll bring that to you, Marshall. What's the procedure for electing a Ziffa board? Thank you, Tinashe, for the message.
Yeah, I think before I answer Tinashe's question, I would also want to make a contribution on what you said, saying on how do we make this set, how do we turn this setback into a comeback? I think that was an important question, and I agree partly with what Kevin is saying. I think, me personally, the whole system in Ziffa needs to repent to allow professionalism to reign. We need actually to implement the three theories, three R's of change management, which are reform, restructure, and rebuild. The current constitution, as you have said, needs to be reviewed and amended to enable performance management and monitoring of the association to be conducted by those outside the organization without vested interest. We need a robust quality assurance process that must be implemented, tailor-made to protect the organization and not individuals. The fans also need to be represented on the board. They are the custodians of the game. They should have a say in the vote of who should also become the board member. So I actually think these are important reforms that we need to focus. And I actually think SRC need wisdom now, and they need wisdom to ensure that they urgently engage all the key stakeholders to meet and discuss the way forward and agree on reforms without prejudice. When I say without prejudice, the reforms should be for the greater interest of the game, not to settle any personal scores. They should avoid personal emotional scores and put Zimbabwe football first. I think now more than ever, we need to be united in finding solutions that will work for the greater good of Zimbabwean football. As you know, we have been at the peripheral in the third sector. We've given our best shot, but perhaps maybe when we have solutions or even help to put together to support the national team, at times we've not been given access because of nepotism or fear that we may, if people allow us to do what we want to do, we may gain some influence, maybe, which will undermine their power. So I actually think this needs to be tackled. I'll then ask the question that is it Tinashe who was asked, how the Ziffa board elected? The Ziffa board elected is the Ziffa board is elected by councillors. These councillors come from the 10 regions that run Zimbabwe football. So they are the members in the executive committees that run football throughout the country. So you have the northern region, the southern region, but the northern region. So you've got all these regions that are there. So the councillors now come in, which means the committee members that sit in those bearing offices, they are the ones that come to vote. And I think in number I'm not quite sure how many numbers, the 40 something, I think, people that are participate in that election, these councillors. So they are the ones that are responsible for voting.
You mentioned fans being made to be custodians of the game and being stakeholders. Is that so? These councillors, are these just normal football fans who are also voting for
these councillors are executive committee members that sit in the regional Ziffa administrative board. Like, for example, in Marsh East, we have the Marsh East region board, Ziffa region. So there's a chairman, there's a secretary, there's an administrator, there's this whole hierarchy of people. These are the councillors now that vote for the Ziffa person. So there are people that are involved in football administration. To what extent does it take someone's credentials to become a councillor? This is where we have problems also. And I think we need to look at this. For me, I actually think that we must have a criteria where I think the system needs to be reviewed and changed to enable meritocracy to thrive. People that have got the credentials to thrive. We need a fit and proper person vetting criteria to be included in the process. Before one can qualify saying to become a candidate for the Ziffa board, they must meet the requirement of good character. They must have the qualifications, competence, skills, experience necessary to perform at that level. without these safeguards in place, Sam, I think this is where the system would deliver another Kamambo as well. So this is the challenge that we have. And I think the person who's asking is actually right. We need to have these safeguards in, because here there are safeguards, like here, if you want to become an FA president or chairman of the FA, the job is advertised, and you must have the experience to run an organization, and the FA will set an independent committee to preside over those interviews. So there's thorough scrutiny for you to become, it's not left to people that you cannot manipulate the system here. But it seems our system is not working for the greater good of our game. Then we should change it. I think we should change it to ensure the people with credentials should be able to get into office. And we don't want anyone with a criminal record to be entrusted with our football. These are the safeguards that we need to put. I think we need to look at these things in detail.
Yeah, I get you. Rounding up this topic, Kels. So obviously you mentioned what you think should happen going forward. This is probably about the game itself, but then coming back to maybe the general sentiment of the show this hour of sport and politics, right? Do you feel SRC, the government, were right to do what they did, considering the background that we've gotten from Marshall, or do you think FIFA were right in also what they did?
In terms of procedure, I think FIFA were well within their rights if they felt that there was interference of the governing body.
And you're
How,
comfortable with that structural procedure of
what I'm saying is, if if at all that some wrongdoing was identified
Mm,
on the part of FIFA board or members,
mm.
and then because every country has a law, has its laws,
Yes,
and the
yes,
full extent of the law
yes,
should have played out.
yes.
If people needed to be prosecuted, well, so be it.
Mm,
But as Marshall pointed out in the beginning, that maybe they short circuited the whole the whole uh, flowchart of things, the way things happened,
mm.
that perhaps they might have jumped in too early.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
but we are not um, we're not privy to
So exactly
exactly
what
what
happened.
has
Yes,
gone on. So
yes,
we can only comment perhaps on matters procedural, but
yes,
we don't have the ins and outs of what actually transpired
yes, yes.
behind closed doors.
Yes, I get you. I get that. I get that point, but I don't know. I don't know if it's just me who's a bit just uncomfortable with.
Can I just come in there?
Yes.
I think personally, if I'm going to speak openly, I think many lessons should be learned from this humiliating experience. I think what is important here is that important decisions, sometimes they must not be rushed. Sometimes, to be honest, slowly is the safest way to get to where you want to be. Sometimes, I think with all good intentions, SRC decisions, I think they were rushed. They needed to wait patiently for the judiciaries to do their job first and then prosecute. I felt they moved in too fast, without thorough diligence. So they underestimated the wounded leadership resistance, that was very clever in manipulating FIFA laws and statutes to their advantage, knowing that they were also at fault, So I actually think what FIFA did, obviously, according to the FIFA law, is correct. But what also SRC did within their own jurisdiction is also correct, because you don't wait when people are harming people and abusing people that you need to give them a fair prosecution. You suspend them immediately, and then you deal with the matters. So I actually think if you look at the SRC constitution, they are also right in such. Same today, if you are the president of the Zimbabwe Boxing Association, and then there's a case against you for sexually abusing people, SRC have got a right to suspend you with him. Even the public in Zimbabwe would demand that you be suspended immediately.
Yes.
But for FIFA to say that no, we refer that is to tantamount to government interference, I think FIFA should also change their law to ensure that where there are special cases where abuse is deemed here, there should not be any exceptions, for FIFA to allow these people to. What if we allow them back into office and they continue to abuse people? Are FIFA
Exactly.
going to come and take responsibility? So I
Exactly.
actually think that something is flawed. Is flawed there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. FIFA for me in an issue like this, it sounds like an outside entity looking in, and the SRC on the ground, they know what's happening. They if the criminal cases going on, surely if it's the SRC, if it's
Are
the
they
government, if
are
they
they
have
are
to.
they are they proven?
Yeah, but then the
Oh,
argument is that
then okay.
you know
So
saying,
we let the
Are they
I think
we
the
let the
argument
law
is
takes its course,
no?
right?
All
I
I'm
think the
saying,
argument is innocent until proved guilty. That would be the argument. They're saying, okay, if they're doing that, why have they not been arrested? I think that's what FIFA will be saying. If you're coming to us
Okay.
to say these officials have been arrested because they did this, then we can take action as
Then
FIFA. But so as long as there's no evidence of prosecution, then
uh-huh.
we think that these could be. And these guys were saying we've done nothing wrong. We're just being targeted.
Yeah, okay. And this is something that started like what 2020, 2021. So
Yeah,
if no charges have been brought by
the,
now,
the
they might
journalists
have a case.
to investigate.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. We continue with the theme of sports and politics, and we touch on Russia losing the Champions League final, the Formula One, and other sports momentarily. Sorry, before we go that, Marshall, we obviously with all this going on with Zifa, there was a bit of some good news going on with the Mighty Warriors. Obviously, they failed at the last hurdle; they just couldn't score that one extra goal to get to the African Cup finals for the women. Just a small word on the Mighty Warriors and the resilient effort to try and qualify for AFCON.
Yeah, the comeback in Gaborone, Botswana,
Mm,
was very spirited. The performance was very spirited there, and I just wish they'd avoided to concede more goals at home. They
mm.
would maybe taken the result. Would have taken them to the finals. But unfortunately, again, this is another case as well, where even if they had qualified, I don't think they would have gone to Morocco because of the situation where we are in now. So one way or the other, I think justice denied was justice served
Oh,
in the performance.
oh yeah, they wouldn't have gone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this means no football whatsoever, no international football whatsoever until further notice. But we can continue with the local leagues.
We can play our domestic football, but we
Okay.
cannot participate in any international competitions that are sanctioned by FIFA. Which is the CAF club competitions, the
Yeah,
Africa Cup of Nations, and all these World Cup qualifiers.
World Cup qualifiers as well.
So we are just as good as restricted to local domestic football, really, and nothing else outside that.
I'm sure we'll come back. We'll come back to this topic. This, obviously, like I said earlier on, this is supposed to be the last in a series of shows sponsored by Terrence Higgins Trust. There's talk in the background for us to continue. We'll see what the sponsors and the bosses say. We might be continuing this show, but if we do, I think this is a topic that will continue in the coming weeks. We'll just take a short sponsor break. We'll come back. We'll talk now. Russia losing the Champions League spot. Continue, obviously, with sport and politics being intertwined. So, this is the Talking Football with Team Zimbabwe UK. We'll be back after this break.
Did you know some people live with HIV for years without showing any symptoms? It's National HIV Testing Week, a perfect time to have a test. If you have HIV, finding out means you can start treatment and stay healthy. Test negative, you get peace of mind. Testing is easy, free, and confidential. You can even test at home. Give HIV the finger. A finger prick test is all it takes. Get a free test at freetesting.hiv.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, so I'm still here with CEO of Team Zimbabwe UK, Mr. Marshall Gore, and the CEO of the Sunday Soul Convention, Mr. Kelvin Sefalani. Kelvin, continuing with this theme of sport and politics. I was listening to your show earlier on. You touched a bit on what's happening in the Ukraine and stuff like that, which is obviously sad for humankind. But what's your take on sport now being brought into this whole political situation with Russia? From any sport is anything to do with Russia now, even up to an owner, a Russian owner in England having to relinquish the custodianship of a club because of the affiliation with Russia. We can't even watch the Champions League final. Is that was that inevitable? Is it
Very,
fair?
very
Very
inevitable.
inevitable. But then is it fair on the fans, the teams who've got nothing to do with the politics, but they're going to lose all this, whether it's playing time, whether it's money, whether it's the economy that's going to be boosted by hosting all these occasions. But there was no you do you
No,
think there was no choice?
no, there was no choice really. At the end of the day, the final will be played, but in a place that's not in St. Petersburg.
Mm,
Um, One has to try and all of these things. You have to try and assess and analyze some of these things with a measure of emotional intelligence.
okay.
Bear in mind that there are many thousands of people who have perished
Yes.
from what has transpired in recent days.
Yes.
So we can't pretend that there's been no massive loss of life.
Mm-hmm.
We have to acknowledge that that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when something like that happens, there are consequences that you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
That when people die,
Mm-hmm.
um, you diver- you divert yourself from a path of normality. Things change
Yes.
when you have that much that amount of loss of life. And obviously, I don't know whether Russia had discounted the fact that if they were going to take the course of action that they had taken, that there were going to be consequences. Maybe they'd already decided that, okay, we'll more than likely lose this, that, and the other,
Mm-hmm.
but it was inevitable. It was no surprise. I mean, this was a brazen act where we saw tanks and army personnel from Russia
Mm-hmm.
inside Ukraine. We heard the shelling. We heard people. We saw for ourselves
Yes.
the countless people that have sought refuge,
Yes.
even in bunkers and on the metro and underground system in Ukraine. So yeah, we can't pretend to say it shouldn't really affect things,
Mm-hmm.
because bear in mind, it's just like, for instance, uh, uh, Zinchenko, the
Yes.
Manchester
Yes.
City's left back.
Yes.
A lot of people uh, are rightly or wrongly are trying to give him some sort of spiritual and moral support,
Mm.
knowing full well that he's uh, the, uh, the people from his country are having to live through this terrible time for them,
Yes.
and so obviously people will want to show some kind of support or show their disdain for what has transpired
So
in
showing
recent.
that disdain, it's fair to use sport to do that. Is what you're saying? Because, like I said, we're talking about sport and politics mixing, and in this case, definitely mixing, whether we like it or not. But that's fine. We can use sport in this case to show our disdain to what Russia is doing. Is that what you say?
If we go back and look at the days of apartheid in South Africa,
Yes. Yes.
there were so
They
many
couldn't.
people who wanted to see a free South Africa,
Yes.
and they couldn't reconcile the fact that other people were continuing to play
To play.
sport,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
knowing full well
What's going on?
what was happening in South Africa,
Yes.
where people were not seen to be equal,
Hmm.
that some people had a greater value than others, and people didn't like that. people did not like that, and they showed their discomfort with
Yes.
with the course of events and set of circumstances in South Africa.
Yes.
That they decided that they couldn't play against, say, the Springboks or the or the national team national cricket team of South Africa or any other sport.
Mm.
To be fair, so yeah, there will be times where politics and sports will overlap, and then you have to work your way through all the muck to redeem and retrieve what is good and proper.
That's a tough one for me. I don't know. Uh, I don't know why I feel so uncomfortable about it. But okay, and then we then go to the point where any any Russian uh, sports sports person is then banned. Not we're no longer talking about playing in Russia. We're talking about just playing anywhere. If you're Russian, because of what your lunatic of a president did, you're no longer allowed to participate in that. I don't know. Does it not feel like it's a bit too much? Like, can we take it like case by case basis? I don't know, but are we saying every Russian now is punished in the world of sport because of what the government has done? Is that fair?
It's it's not fair, but sometimes life isn't fair.
But it has to be done.
Sometimes it just has to be done
Yeah, yeah.
because sometimes to change a system
Mm,
you need different ways of applying pressure.
mm,
Because ultimately, in the end, like for instance, South Africa, case in point, they
mm.
were beginning to feel the pressure. They
Yeah,
felt the pressure of isolation.
I remember England
And
coming to South Africa and
and
people protesting for them playing in South Africa at the time.
ultimately they began to feel the pressure, and it wasn't the only thing. They were feeling pressure in many different spheres of life,
Mm,
of commerce, of industry, of
mm,
sport, of culture,
mm.
that ultimately the system
Yeah,
gave up
yeah,
in the end, and they said, so life is unfair that way. I
yeah.
mean, um, obviously people have to try and make sure that they don't fall into a feeling of Russophobia, that everything Russian is bad or
Yes,
Russians are bad.
yes.
We have to make sure that we're vigilant, that people don't develop that feelings of Russophobia
Mm,
for no good reason.
mm,
However, always, I think humanity must be in pursuit of human dignity
mm.
and safety for all people.
They've always said sport brings people together, and we've seen that happening. Can't we use instead of banning sport? Can we then use sport to bring the warring factions together? In this case, is that not possible?
It is possible, but the possibilities are diminishing somewhat
Yeah.
when there's a process of invasion that you have to talk about.
Yeah. That the invasion part is I know where you come from. Marshall, uh, talking about sports and politics mixing, is it fair to make a comparison with the Kenya and Zimbabwe issue where FIFA came in and suspended the two bodies? Is there a case to be made for FIFA to come in this situation and maybe say, okay, fine, because of what's going on, Russia is no longer allowed from the FIFA family for a while.
No, I think if we go back to international law, I think there's an issue here. I think what I want to do also is, maybe before I say what I want to say, I really want to give a disclaimer first. And my disclaimer is that we are not supporting the war in Ukraine. I think
Yes,
we don't want war, and no country should invade another country. And
yes, yes,
obviously,
yes,
our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine.
yes,
But then, if we are going to go back to international law, you're going to find out again what I've said to you, that there's a lot of inconsistency in applying these laws.
yeah,
I'll give you an example. Uh, when the US went into Iraq to invade Iraq, They
Yes.
were not suspended from playing international sport. They did it against the Security Council resolution, the same what Russia has done.
Yes.
Britain supported them. There was
Yes.
no sanctioning. They continued as business as usual.
Yes.
When the US went to attack Libya, it was the same issue again. They continued to have the freedom, and every business was normal. So it looks like some of these laws, there's a selective application of laws, and if it is going to work, then it has to be appropriate. Like if I can give you an example, Sam, that in the last 48 hours, we have seen dozens of Russian airstrikes in Ukraine. It's there on TV.
Hmm.
That's what we can see. But also, there's been airstrikes in Syria from Israel,
Hmm.
with the same intensity. But Israel are going to play their qualifiers. Also, Saudi Arabia airstrikes in Yemen. This is daily, it's continuous. It's not
Yes.
in our faces. If they've been suspended from participating in world football games, also the US are still fighting terrorism in Somalia against the wishes of the Somalian government. As we speak right now, there are US airstrikes in Somalia, but has America been suspended? So again, these are issues that are beyond us. But for me, what Russia has done obviously is not right to invade another country. But if we're going to sanction Russia on those bases, then let's sanction all the other transgressors as well in the same vein. Let's not apply selective justice.
Yes.
So that's a fact that I'm saying. And also, I think my point is also when we punish the Russian national team, we are making assumptions that the Russian national team are in support with the president. What if
Exactly.
we have seen protests in Moscow of Russians that are protesting and sympathizing with the Ukrainians? What if the national team were also in that same? Imagine the impact if Russia had gone ahead to play Poland, and the Russian players had come out to show their sympathy with
Yes. Yes.
with Ukraine against their own government wishes. Imagine how much that was going to mean to the world. So
Yes.
sometimes I think we overjudge one another in this world. That
Hmm.
maybe what you do, Sam, I see your sins are bigger than my sins. But I
Hmm.
just think that in international law, there's something that is not working that we need to look at. That if you looked at maybe I'll become a little bit more political. In 1962, um, Cuba bought some missile defenses from Russia, and they wanted to put them in in Cuba, in Havana, to protect themselves from American aggression. They were
Hmm.
given uh, 48 hours to relinquish um, that agreement with Russia, or else the US would attack them. US still attacked them and killed Fidel Castro's daughter as a result of that. There were airstrikes in Cuba as a
Hmm.
result of this. So they were denied their right to sovereignty to have any military assistance that they wanted from another country. So these things, this is a debate for international law. So for me, I think football should ride above this. Football should be the tool used to unite people in times of war. I don't think we should use football to punish countries and pick and choose when we want to punish countries. But at the same time, I'm not saying it's good to see people being attacked. It's not right. We don't want war. We want peace. So if at all, my argument would be that I'm urging all the key stakeholders to come together and talk and find a peaceful solution to this. But then when people start to pick and choose which country to punish and which to not punish, when what we saw in Libya, there's no country in Libya. Libya was virtually destroyed and bombed and destroyed as we speak. And the same with Iraq as well, but
Hmm.
nothing happened. So I think there's inconsistency of justice. And my view is that justice has to be the same. If we choose to say we are punishing all the aggressive nations, they should not participate in the football. Let's do it consistently. Let's not be selective in
Hmm.
doing this. So that's my view.
we we're going to move to coming to the last part of the show, to talking about the cup final between your club Chelsea and Liverpool. We'll just preview that momentarily, but before we do that, on the last part of this sport and politics issue, your club Chelsea, obviously, the owner has been affected by this and is relinquished control of the club. um, what does that mean for your club? What's the general sentiment amongst Chelsea fans because of that? And do you think there are going to be any maybe long-term problems going out? What does that mean for not just for today's game, but for the future of Chelsea?
You see, this is the people that sometimes people get so emotional without reasoning. So if you are saying that, I know the sentiment is that then Abramovich is going to lose Chelsea, those size, all his assets, and all these things. But then we have to be also factual and real when we are discussing these issues. Almost 60% of gas in Europe is supplied by a Russian state-owned company. So why are they not freezing the assets of that company that is providing gas into Europe and saying it's not happening? So why target other entities and leave other entities as well? Europe is benefiting directly from Russia as we speak. Why not? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that when people become emotional sometimes and lose it really. So I don't see any common sense in saying that Roman Abramovich. Okay, if you say you want to seize Roman Abramovich assets, there has to be a basis for doing that, and the criteria has to be fair also. And the criteria does not only have to limit to stay with the Russians. Also, we know that there are people here with assets that are funding wars elsewhere as well. We know, I'll give you a very good example. Maybe Kelvin, you recall this, that high-profile British man, the son of former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, was caught and imprisoned in Zimbabwe, trying to instigate a coup in Equatorial Guinea. Was his assets here taken by the state because he was going there trying to commit crimes elsewhere? So we look at these things, that is there fairness and justice in the application of these laws. So for me, I'm not condemning those that are saying it should happen, but what I just want is justice. When we say we are going to do this, let's be consistent in our approach in dishing out this funds. We can't say we want to only attach Abramovich assets, but the assets of the company that is supplying the Russian state-owned company, because we need their gas, they continue to operate and keep their assets, but Abramovich relinquishes Chelsea. I think that would be just a political statement. And I know Roman has now handed over the stewardship of Chelsea to the foundation trust of the club. He's not a trustee member. He's not a board trustee or a trustee member of the board. So he has handed it over to this UK registered trustee. He has done it to protect the interests of the club, So it's going to be interesting.
Obviously, he's going to be there in the background, detecting stuff, isn't it?
Pardon?
He's going to be there in the background, detecting. Even though he's relinquished on paper, he's still going to be involved.
But then that's an argument that can you prove that, though, Sam?
Yeah, of course, exactly.
So everything is gonna go out to be. If you say you're giving me your house and you're handing over the title deeds to a trust that I own that you don't belong to yourself, surely are we to penalize you to say no? We'll still prosecute you because you still own the house when you have handed over. So these are legal things that we need to look at. And people sometimes get excited in talking to these in making comments on these topics. But I actually think that the measures and rules should be consistent. This should not only happen to Russians. It should happen to everyone, to all the business people that are operating here, that we know are responsible for wars happening elsewhere. They should also be subjected to the same rules and regulations. If we are to be fair, if we are to say we are democratic and fair society, then we should equitably apply the rules to everyone, not selectively apply it to certain people when it suits us.
Yes. Anyway, okay. Closing this segment of the show, the question at the beginning was, can politics and sport be separated, or they're always going to be intertwined? And in 20 seconds, Marsha, I'll start with you before I go to Kelvin. In 20 seconds, so after what we've talked about, do we think sport and politics can be separated, or they will always be intertwined?
I think you can't separate anything in this world. That's number one. The political side, football, is part of the ecosystem of the social, economic, and political life of everyone. So I don't think you can put a demarcation to say these two do interfere. But I think what you can is to regulate to ensure that politicians should not have a say in football. The administrators who run football should have a say, but also you should have a law to say that football administration and associations should be accountable to governments.
Kelvin, same question to you.
No, I largely agree with what Marshall is saying. However, I did want to just make a quick point of the tremendous loss I believe it would be if uh, uh, Roman Abramovich's influence on the Premiership is deleted, if not diminished, because at the end of the day, he has brought color, excitement to the Premiership. Because all too often, people will remember that at one time the only dog in town was Manchester United.
And
And
Arsenal.
well, and in terms of financial
Yes,
clout,
yeah,
in terms of financial clout, it was always only Manchester United.
yeah.
And then along came Roman Abramovich and his millions, and of course the way that he was able to buy players that we would never have imagined playing in the Premiership in those days. The likes of Shevchenko,
Mm.
I don't know if people will recall. I'm not really a Chelsea supporter, but I'm trying to. George Weah, all of those players of immense quality and immense repute as well. They all came to play for Chelsea, and I don't think it would have been largely possible without Roman Abramovich's millions.
Yeah,
So we have to give credit where it's due.
yeah,
He's made the Premiership much, much more exciting,
yeah.
and I for Chelsea supporters, it must be the news is not good. Put it that way. That he's relinquishing stewardship of Chelsea, and I don't know what ultimately the end is going to be. Uh, um, uh, the what's going to happen with him relinquishing stewardship of Chelsea, where it's all going to end. But I hope it's not as bad as it might.
Hopefully it's temporary. Though.
Hopefully it's temporary. Or
Yeah, yeah. He has brought some excitement to the Premiership. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you guys. We'll just take another short break. Hear from our sponsors. We come back. We just take predictions for the game today. Mr. Marshall, tell us what you think your chances are. We'll hear from a Liverpool fan as well, who will tell us what you think the chances are. We hear from Kels. Predictions. Your predictions haven't been good since we started
no,
this
no,
series
the
of
only
shows.
one that I said was Afcon.
Yeah,
Yeah, but well, as far as I was concerned,
and there's
I,
another listener who's got a bet with you about the end
he's got a lot of money.
the
That one, I
league.
don't mind taking money from him.
So we'll take predictions when we come back from this short break, short message from our sponsors. Remember, the show is brought to you by Terrence Higgins Trust. For all your testing and sexual health awareness, visit www.tht.org.uk.
Did you know some people live with HIV for years without showing any symptoms? It's National HIV Testing Week, a perfect time to have a test. If you have HIV, finding out means you can start treatment and stay healthy. Test negative, you get peace of mind. Testing is easy, free, and confidential. You can even test at home. Give HIV the finger. A finger prick test is all it takes. Get a free test at freetesting.hiv.
Well, if you're joining us, welcome to PamtengoRadio.com and streaming from the studios of PamtengoRadio.com at Luton Town, 55 to 55A Princess Street. And this particular program is proudly sponsored by the Terrence Higgins Trust. And of course, their remit is to try and increase the awareness and the dangers of HIV infection. Ultimately, they're working in the community at large to try and make sure that people take a positive attitude to tackling this disease. And all said and done, that is being being able to go out and get tested and getting the professional advice required for anyone who might perhaps um, test positive with HIV. And in association with Team Zimbabwe, um, who's the Team Zimbabwe, which ironically is marshaled by a man called Marshall Gore. And, he's the CEO of Team Zimbabwe, and they're pulling out all the stops and um, uh, making a positive change for all matters football, either the national team or football in general. And of course, this program also hosted by Sam Hua and yours truly, Calvin Sifelani. We've been gathering every Sunday around about this time to talk all matters football. And sometimes some of these matters overlap into, unfortunately, politics, which is a very unsavory subject. But some of these matters do have to be tackled. Um, I know that with Sam having come back, he will no doubt tell us about his plans for the rest of the program, which ultimately is talking about the Carabao
Carabao
Cup,
Cup final.
Carabao Cup final. And that is being played in the background of another battle, which is the battle for fourth place. We've just heard words that West Ham was able to pick up 3 points in their encounter with Wolves. Wolves is somewhat falling out of the fray right now because they also suffered a defeat to Arsenal during the week. So I don't know if that makes matters any clearer for fourth position, because also Manchester
Come on.
United, Manchester United
Come on.
drew with Watford just the other day. I know Sam was saying "come on" because ultimately he wants Arsenal to be in fourth position. I can't say I disagree with him there, but it's still open. Football can reveal a whole number of strange results. For instance, Manchester United, everybody believed that they were going to pick up 3 points against the bottom side in the league, and they only came
You
away
can't
with a draw.
you can't bet on Man United these days, can you?
Well, gee, Manchester United is going through
It's
a
become
phase
embarrassing, really.
right now. But having said that, Manchester United has the quality within their ranks to change things. Let's never underestimate the quality in of that squad. Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, Cristiano Ronaldo, uh,
Anyway, listen,
Marcus Rashford.
let's not give these Man United people time. They don't deserve to for us to be talking about. There's a cup
No,
final today.
no,
Why are we talking about some United?
you've got to be honest when you're sizing up the threat, and we have to be honest. There
A
is
threat from United.
absolutely,
What threat?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Put it this way: if you Arsenal is doing relatively well, but they don't have the squad that Manchester United have. Manchester United, if they were to turn it on, if everything were to
And you
fall
say
into
there's a
place.
threat. There's no threat from United. There's a threat from West Ham. There's a threat
No,
from for fourth spot.
what if Manchester United went on a run and won all their remaining games? And you might say, "Oh, no team ever does that." I've seen Manchester City do it.
Can any United supporter come and tell us that that's possible? I want any United supporter to just say that can happen. United will go on a run. Anyway, let's not give them the time. They're useless these days. Chelsea and Liverpool in the cup final today. Come, let's hear from Chelsea and Liverpool fans. Already, Caesar says the Reds will win 2-1. Yeah, I can see that happening. And then there's no name here. It's going to be a draw. It got to penalties, and I see Salah again losing on penalties. Come on, that's cruel, boy. Salah losing again on cruel. Thanks for that message. Going to say is so Kel sees top four being open, but not the league. Okay. Talking about Ngoni, he's the one who's the Liverpool supporter who's going to be joining us momentarily. Let's hear from him. Marshall, I'll come to you for the Chelsea perspective um, in a minute. Mr. Ngoni, you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you say hello.
Marshall, can you hear Ngoni?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you, Ngoni, for coming on. So you guys, kickoff is in 15 minutes. We should be off air in the next 10 minutes so that we all watch the final. Your predictions?
3-1.
3-1. 3-1. You mentioned before the show, you texted saying, Sam, we need to talk about this. I think we should talk about what you were mentioning maybe in more detail later on. But you said you think this is the strongest Liverpool team in your lifetime, right? So
Yes.
right. Why do you say that? Because in your lifetime, I think Bruce Grobler was alive, John Barnes was alive, Graham Souness was alive. Why did you put this team ahead of that team?
Because so if you look at it, so it's a team that's been consistently getting to the 90-point mark in the league, and I don't think there's been a lot of teams that have managed to do that. So I think in the past 5 years we've had stories of people saying, "Oh, these points usually should give you, it should give you the league." So that's why
Okay.
They have a lot of world-class players around them now.
And player for player, you still think your team, the present team, is better than the 80s team, player for player, in every position?
Not in every position, but I think overall,
yes,
we have a team that can. Because I genuinely believe that our midfield, our defense, and our attack is way stronger than that they had in the 80s.
In the 80s. Oh yeah,
definitely. So, but we can definitely our midfield can definitely be improved, but I don't think those. If I think that this team would be the 80s team.
Okay, you said 3-1 in 90 minutes for this game. Marshall, Chelsea, what do you think when he says 3-1 to Liverpool?
Yeah, I think Liverpool the favourites going into this game. They've been in top form. They've been winning all their games very convincingly. Chelsea has been struggling lately, winning very narrowly with very narrow margins, not scoring a lot of goals. Liverpool have the advantage because they're the team that is in form. But I think, and also what has been happening with Chelsea will also kind of like affect the atmosphere, So I kind of like thinking that looking at everything that is surrounding this game and the events at Chelsea, Liverpool kind of like going to this game 1-0 up already because of the emotions and everything that is happening. But football is funny sometimes, you never know what might happen. So I think if Chelsea is to win, they'll have to fight hard to get a result, really. And if they're to win, I don't think it would be a big mark. It would be 1-0. If they have to win, it will be 1-0. But it will be a hard-fought victory, really.
Okay, well, a word on Chelsea, Marshall. Kante, one of my favorite players of all time. I was reading today, if he wins today, this trophy would have won every available trophy that he's ever played for in his life. That would be something for someone like Kante, one of the best players ever.
That would be a nice.
I didn't hear Marshall's prediction.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Marshall was saying no. Marshall was agreeing with you that you guys are favorite. Sorry if you didn't hear that. Yeah, he was agreeing with you that you guys are favorite. And obviously, the stuff going on behind Chelsea might maybe work in your favor.
No. We don't. No. I wanted to say to you, the minute it takes more than a minute for you to explain yourself, there's a bit of fear there. Absolutely no point. All this stuff started when they knew the final was on, so I don't know what you guys are on about. Let's move on to the next story. It's not as if it started.
Listen, can you tell him that
3 weeks ago when they said the date for the final? Is
it? Sam, can you tell him that in the last 2 decades, Chelsea won 21 trophies. So losing if we lose the League Cup today, it would be nothing because Chelsea have won every trophy that matters to win in this world. So it's nothing to us, really. If we lose, if we lose to Liverpool, we let them celebrate the League Cup. For me, it's an unending, it's an unending thing. But that doesn't mean we're not going to put up a fight. But I think they want it more than we want. We want it because remember we won the Champions League, so they want.
Got it.
And
Got it. We'll continue. I want to continue this discussion about Liverpool being. Yes. Go on. We'll continue this discussion about.
I didn't quite get.
No. Marshall is happy for you guys to take the cup final today. They say they've got bigger fish to fry. They've won bigger trophies,
Of course,
and they don't really.
Course,
so you can get that one.
They've got the top 4 trophy to fight for. That's why he's saying that. And we do forgive them. We forgive them.
Listen, go on. Well, next week,
yes,
we want to go into detail about what you said about this being the strongest Liverpool team. So we'll talk about that next week. The cup final is starting in about 8 minutes. So we're rounding up the show now. Thanks, Goni, for joining us. We'll catch up again next week. Tinashe obviously replying to Ngoni's claim that this is the best Liverpool team ever said, but at the end of the day, they haven't won much. That 80s team was complete. There have been a lot of messages that have come on Caesar, Ngoni, Munya, Elaine, Kudzi, Tinashe, Jivas, and then some other names, obviously. Some other messages with no names. Thank you for the messages. Remember, you can always listen to the audio-only broadcast on www.pamtengo.com, or you can go to tunein.com/Pamtengo Radio. But we're always broadcasting live on Team Zimbabwe UK page and on Pamtengo Radio page as well. Marshall, before you go, just a word on your partnership with Terrence Higgins Trust, our sponsors for today, and the work you guys are doing in the community.
Thank you, Sam. We are so grateful with our partnership with Terry Higgins Trust. We believe that it has helped to shape a better community for us. Integrating football with effective health promotion helps to build a better society. So I'm so delighted and grateful that over the last 10 years, we've been working collectively together with Terrence Higgins to deliver a better, fitter, and healthy society. A society that not only can play football, but a society that can also engage and live in healthy lifestyles. A society that is also conscious of the important awareness of HIV treatment, testing, and prevention, which is better than cure. So we want to thank Terry Higgins that they have been part of our success in building a healthier and much more wiser society in the work that we have done. So we are so grateful for what they have done to us.
Thank you. And Kelvin, last words before we go.
Well, I'm glad that we had a moment to be able to discuss a wide array of things today, and the mouth-watering prospects of the fight for the 4th position. I see that Goni has made mention that he thinks Chelsea will be in that fray, but I strongly doubt it myself. I think it's lower down the order where the real challenge is going to be between West Ham, Tottenham.
That's the exciting end of the season.
That's right. And as far as who's going to walk away with the league, for me, I've written it down already. I've accepted, although I'm an Arsenal supporter, Manchester City will be crowned champions 21-22.
And you're taking all bets.
Goodness gracious. God wanted me to bet that Liverpool is going to take it. And, like I say, I don't mind taking money from Goni. Goni's a very well-to-do, wealthy man. So I will feel no sense of remorse if I'm taking money from Goni, which I will gladly do at the end of the season.
Where are we watching the game? Are we watching in the studio or going to the pub?
In the studio.
In the studio. Okay, well, we logging off now to watch the game. Today is supposed to be the last in a series of shows brought to you by Terrence Higgins Trust for this February, where we promoting sexual health awareness and testing ourselves in the African community. Kels, Marshall, have you had a good time doing this show brought out to us by Terrence Higgins Trust? Do you guys think we should continue, or what you think? What do you think, Kels? You
Absolutely. If there's a scope for us to continue, so be it. So we
think,
will continue.
and thanks for being a part of this. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
I've enjoyed talking to you, Marshall. What do you think? I've enjoyed as well having you and Team Zimbabwe on the show. Terrence Higgins Trust, of course. I say there's a lot of other stuff they want us to do. Obviously, going further between Pamtengo Radio and Team Zimbabwe. But I've had fun talking to you guys about football. Do you think we should try it again?
For me, this has been a lovely Sunday afternoon hobby to talk about football and to be hosted by two fantastic football loving and good friends as well, yourself and Kelvin. So why not, if we can, why not? And I'm sure the feedback you're getting from the listeners is that they've been enjoying it as well. So why not? If it's not broken, why mend it?
Right, exactly. Anyway, watch out for news. Go to Team Zimbabwe UK Facebook page, Pamtengo Radio Facebook page, Team Zimbabwe website, Pamtengo Radio website. When you get more details there of what we're doing going forward. But for today, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you to everyone who's listened. And we'll be back soon. We'll have more details on the social media platforms to tell you what's happening. We're going to leave with a message from our sponsors, Terrence Higgins Trust.
Did you know some people live with HIV for years without showing any symptoms? It's National HIV Testing Week, a perfect time to have a test. If you have HIV, finding out means you can start treatment and stay healthy. Test negative, you get peace of mind. Testing is easy, free, and confidential. You can even test at home. Give HIV the finger. A finger prick test is all it takes. Get a free test at freetesting.hiv.
Hey, yes you. Have you heard about PrEP? PrEP is a drug that can stop one from getting HIV. Yes, you heard right. There's still no cure for HIV. Scientists are working on developing a safe and effective vaccine. Until then, there is PrEP, taken by people who don't have HIV, but are at a great risk of being exposed to it. PrEP protects. When your body is exposed to HIV, these medicines in PrEP stop the virus from entering your system. When taken as prescribed, PrEP can reduce a person's chances of getting HIV from sex by 99%. Listen, I'm encouraging you to know more about PrEP and consider using it if you've got several sexual partners.
Did you know some people live with HIV for years without showing any symptoms? It's National HIV Testing Week, a perfect time to have a test. If you have HIV, finding out means you can start treatment and stay healthy. Test negative, you get peace of mind. Testing is easy, free, and confidential. You can even test at home. Give HIV the finger. A finger prick test is all it takes. Get a free test at freetesting.hiv.